There is something very few Shih Tzu owners openly confess, perhaps because it feels almost unbelievable at first, even with that innocent round face. Those glistening marble eyes, and that soft little body that waddles like a living plush toy. There are moments when your Shih Tzu behaves in ways that leave you staring in confusion, wondering how this tiny angelic creature just growled, snapped, or flashed a temper you didn't know it had. Shih Tzus are famous for their cheerful, easygoing, happy-go-lucky spirit. So when aggression appears, it can feel like a betrayal of the very identity you believed they had. Yet beneath the layers of sweetness and charm lies a very real animal with instincts, boundaries, fears, and frustrations. And when those emotions overflow, they surface through behaviors that owners often misinterpret as bad, even though they are nothing more than attempts to communicate in the only language dogs truly know. Aggression in a Shih Tzu is rarely about dominance or meanness. It is often a message, a signal that they are overwhelmed, confused, uncomfortable, or uncertain about how to navigate a moment that feels threatening to them. Understanding this truth transforms your perspective. Suddenly, those flashes of intensity are no longer alarming. They are invitations to look deeper and love wiser. And the journey begins with the first and most startling sign the moment your gentle little dog decides to bite. Part 1. When a small set of teeth becomes a message you can't ignore. Every dog owner experiences biting at some point, especially during puppyhood, when the world is new and everything, including your hands, clothes, and shoelaces, feels like an object worth testing, chewing and tugging. Puppy teeth are harmless explorations, soft experiments in social learning, playful attempts to understand how much pressure is too much. But when your Shih Tzu grows older and the biting continues, shifting from clumsy nibbles into sharper, deliberate snaps, something deeper is happening beneath the surface, and it becomes impossible to dismiss the behavior as simple mischief. A Shih Tzu that bites as an adult is not being cruel, stubborn, or dominant. It is expressing a need it hasn't learned to express any other way. Perhaps it feels threatened when someone reaches for its toy, or overwhelmed when a stranger approaches too quickly, or frustrated when its space is invaded, or even anxious because no one ever taught it how to manage big feelings in a small body. The tragedy is that many people see the bite and forget to see the fear behind it. A Shih Tzu who bites often looks away afterward, ears lowered, eyes soft and uneasy, as if apologizing without knowing how. What you are witnessing is not aggression for aggression's sake, but communication wrapped in panic and animal saying, "I do not know what else to do," with the only tool it has. Correcting this behavior does not begin with anger or punishment. It begins with recognition. You observe the moments before the bite, the tension in their muscles, the stiffness in their body, the way their eyes widen or narrow, the way their breathing changes. You realize that the bite is the final expression of a chain of signals they have been giving you all along, and when you respond gently, patiently, and consistently by teaching them boundaries, offering alternative behaviors, protecting their space when they need space, and guiding them through situations that overwhelm them, you begin to rewrite the way they speak to the world. Slowly, the biting fades not because you forced them to stop, but because you taught them a language kinder than fear. Part 2. The low, quiet growl that speaks louder than words. Long before a Shih Tzu ever bites, long before their fear or frustration gathers enough force to reach the edge of their teeth, there is another sound that slips out of them almost involuntarily. A soft vibration deep in their chest that many owners ignore at first because it seems so mild, so subtle, so easy to dismiss. That sound is the growl, not the playful rumble they make during a tug-of-war game, not the silly grunt they produce when rolling around on the carpet, but a specific kind of low, guarded growl that rises only in moments when they feel unsafe or uncertain, when a hand reaches too quickly toward their food bowl, when a stranger comes too close, when another dog approaches their favorite bed, or even when a family member tries to lift them at a time when they are not ready to be touched. In those moments, that little growl becomes their shield. A warning spoken from the thin line between tolerance and fear. A fragile attempt to create space without resorting to anything more dramatic. Many people hear a growl and immediately think their Shih Tzu is misbehaving or challenging their authority. But the truth is far more delicate. A growl is often the very last polite request a dog gives before their emotions spill over into something more difficult to manage. It is their way of saying, "Please stop," or "I am not comfortable," or "Something here feels wrong to me." When we punish that growl, or silence it, or scold them for expressing it, we unintentionally teach them that warning signs are not allowed, which only pushes them to skip the growl entirely the next time and move straight to snapping or biting because they believe that gentler signals no longer work. A growl is not a rebellion. It is a message, one that deserves to be heard. As you begin to understand your Shih Tzu more deeply, you start to notice the subtleties wrapped around that sound, the stiffening of their shoulders, the way their pupils widen or shrink, the small tremble in their body when they feel trapped, the way their tail lowers just enough to reveal they are not angry but overwhelmed. You begin to observe the moments that trigger this reaction. The approach of a toddler who toddles too fast, the rustle of a hand reaching for a cherished toy, the shadow of another dog entering what your Shih Tzu believes is sacred territory. In those quiet observations, something shifts inside you. You realize your little companion is not trying to intimidate anyone, but simply trying to protect themselves in the only way they know. Responding to a growl with patience rather than punishment becomes one of the most loving acts you can offer. You redirect their attention gently, remove them from the situation, give them space to breathe, or teach them new ways to cope with the moment that frightened them. Over time, as they learn that you understand their signals and will step in before the situation becomes overwhelming, they grow more confident, more relaxed, and less dependent on growling as a defensive tool. And in that transformation, a deep trust forms, a trust built not on dominance but on understanding, not on force but on empathy, not on fear, but on the quiet promise that you will be their advocate in a world that sometimes feels too loud for such a small heart. Part 3. When food becomes treasure, and every approach feels like a threat. There is a moment in many Shih Tzu households when something as simple and ordinary as mealtime transforms into a small battlefield of emotion, tension, and instinct. A moment when your sweet, soft-faced companion suddenly stiffens their body, lowers their head, widens their eyes, and guards their bowl as though it contains the last precious resource in the world. Food aggression often catches owners off guard because it appears so suddenly, arising not from cruelty or entitlement but from something far more ancient, something buried deep in the canine mind where survival once depended on protecting every meal with absolute certainty. A Shih Tzu may not look like a creature shaped by survival instincts, yet that instinct lives quietly within them, awakening whenever they feel insecure, rushed, overwhelmed, or challenged by the presence of another dog, another person, or even a well-meaning child who wanders too close at the wrong moment. This behavior becomes even more confusing in homes with multiple pets, where a Shih Tzu who normally shares toys, beds, and affection without complaint suddenly transforms into a rigid, protective guardian the moment food enters the picture. Their growlo, trembling, and barely audible becomes their way of creating a boundary around something they believe could be taken from them. Their posture tightens not out of dominance, but from fear that what belongs to them might disappear. You see the conflict in their eyes, the way they dart between the bowl and whatever approaches. Not out of anger, but out of uncertainty, as though silently begging the world to let them eat in peace. Many owners respond instinctively with frustration, believing their Shih Tzu is misbehaving. Yet the heart of the issue lies not in disobedience, but in emotional insecurity. A dog that trusts its environment does not guard food with desperation. A dog that feels safe does not treat mealtime as a contest. When you look beyond the surface, you begin to see a small animal asking for reassurance in the only way it can. So, the solution is not to challenge them or punish the behavior, but to reshape the environment into something that feels safe enough to release their fear. Feeding dogs in separate rooms, Creating calm routines around meals or teaching gentle desensitization can slowly unwind the knot of anxiety that drives the behavior. Over time, as your Shih Tzu learns that every meal is guaranteed, that no one will swoop in and take what is theirs, that their space is respected and their needs are heard, you will see the tension melt away from their body. Their posture softens, their breathing evens, and their eyes lose that sharp, defensive flicker that once appeared at every footstep. And in that softening, you realize something beautiful. Aggression was never the truth of who they were, only the visible shape of their fear. When safety replaces fear, your Shih Tzu returns to the gentle, trusting creature you know, reminding you once more that patience and understanding are often the most powerful forms of love. Part 4. When a toy becomes a treasure and your Shih Tzu forgets how to share. There comes a moment in many homes where a Shih Tzu who normally seems gentle, carefree, and endlessly tolerant suddenly transforms the instant a certain toy enters the picture. It might be a squeaky plush animal they have carried around since puppyhood, or a frayed rope toy that has survived years of playful tugging, or even something as simple as a rubber ball that no one else in the house finds special. Yet, to your Shih Tzu, it becomes something precious enough to guard with an intensity that feels surprising coming from such a small, soft creature. You see it first in the way their body curls protectively around the object, in the rigid stillness of their posture, in the way their eyes shift not with curiosity but with a silent warning, a subtle insistence that whatever is theirs must remain theirs without question. Toy guarding is one of the most misunderstood forms of aggression because it does not grow from cruelty but from insecurity, a deep internal belief that what brings comfort today might be taken away tomorrow. Your Shih Tzu may not understand why you want to pick up the toy, or why a child is reaching for it, or why another dog has shown interest. And without the ability to voice their discomfort with words, they fall back on the primitive vocabulary of survival, shielding the toy with their paws, tensing their muscles, baring their teeth in a gesture that is less about dominance and more about desperation. When the growl comes, soft but decisive, it often catches the entire household off guard, as if the gentle heart you know so well has momentarily stepped behind a different mask, one shaped by instinct rather than affection. The tragedy is that your Shih Tzu is not trying to be difficult. They are trying to protect their sense of safety in a world where everything feels bigger than they are. They view the toy not merely as an object, but as a piece of emotional security, something that carries their scent, their comfort, their history. And when someone tries to take it away, even for innocent reasons, they feel as though a part of themselves is being threatened. If children are involved, the situation becomes delicate because their unpredictable movements can heighten your dog's anxiety, turning a simple attempt to play into a moment of panic that your Shih Tzu cannot navigate without help. The path toward healing does not lie in yanking the toy away or scolding them for their reaction. Instead, it begins with teaching them that sharing is not a loss, and that humans approaching their favorite object does not mean it will disappear forever. Slow, gentle exercises that pair the approach of a hand with something positive, a treat, praise, or calm presence, gradually rewire their associations, easing the fear that has tightened itself around the toy like an invisible chain. Creating predictable routines, offering multiple toys, and ensuring the home feels emotionally stable all help to soften the edges of their anxiety. With patience, you begin to witness a transformation. The stiff posture loosens, the growl fades, the desperate clutch around the toy becomes a relaxed, almost joyful confidence that no one is trying to take anything away from them. In that transformation, you see again the true heart of your Shih Tzu, sensitive, emotional, easily overwhelmed, but capable of learning that love in a safe home never requires them to guard anything with fear. And as their trust in you deepens, you realize that this journey was never about the toy at all. It was always about teaching them that their world is secure enough for them to let go. Part 5. When being in charge becomes the burden your Shih Tzu never meant to carry, some forms of aggression in a Shih Tzu do not emerge from fear, or from resource guarding, or from the instinct to protect a beloved object. Instead, They arise from something more subtle and far more misunderstood: the quiet belief, formed slowly and unintentionally over time, that they must become the one in control because no one has clearly shown them their place in the family. This is the type of aggression that hides beneath disobedience, beneath stubbornness, beneath the small but unmistakable moments when your Shih Tzu refuses to listen, ignores commands they once obeyed easily, or reacts with irritation when asked to move, to sit, or to leave something alone. Many owners misread this as a dominant dog, but the deeper truth is that a dog trying to lead is often a dog who feels responsible for everything around them and overwhelmed by a role they were never meant to fill. You notice this kind of behavior first in the subtle ways your Shih Tzu makes decisions on their own choosing when they want affection and pushing your hand away when they do not, insisting on leading walks even though their small legs move faster than their caution, blocking hallways or doorways in that still silent way that feels more significant than it looks, or growling lightly when you attempt to move them from a favored spot on the couch or the bed. These behaviors are not random. They are signs of a dog who believes the environment lacks structure and who is stepping into the empty space where guidance should be. And because Shih Tzus are emotionally intelligent and deeply bonded to their humans, they often take on this role with a strange combination of confidence and anxiety, as though trying to protect a family that has accidentally placed too much responsibility on their tiny shoulders. When this sense of misplaced authority grows unchecked, it can shift into aggression, not because your Shih Tzu is trying to overpower you, but because they are trying to maintain the position they believe they must hold. A lifted lip, a guarded stare, a sudden snap when someone attempts to move them are all signs of a dog who feels pressured to enforce rules they never should have been in charge of. The weight of this false leadership creates stress, and stress expresses itself in the only language their body knows. Understanding this changes everything. Instead of seeing a disobedient dog, you begin to see a dog who is exhausted from holding the reins. Reclaiming your role as the calm, confident leader does not require force or harshness. Rather, it requires consistency, clarity, and gentle boundaries woven into everyday life. You teach them to wait before going through doors, to follow rather than lead during walks, to release a toy when asked, and to move from furniture without conflict. Each small moment of guidance becomes a thread that slowly forms a net of security around them. As they learn, they can trust you to make decisions. Their aggression softens, their body relaxes, and their eyes regain the bright, youthful glow of a dog who finally feels safe enough to let go. In that letting go, you witness something quietly beautiful, the relief of a heart that no longer feels responsible for the world. When you step back and look at all these behaviors, the biting that comes from confusion rather than cruelty, the growling that whispers a plea for space, the food and toy guarding born from insecurity, and the misplaced dominance that grows only when structure is missing, you begin to see that none of these signs make your Shih Tzu a bad dog. They make them a sensitive creature trying to navigate a world they cannot fully understand. A world where their instincts sometimes speak louder than their training, and their fears sometimes overshadow their intentions. Aggression in a Shih Tzu is not a verdict on their character, but a glimpse into their emotional landscape. A landscape shaped by trust, routine, safety, and the gentle guidance they depend on from you. And as you learn to read those signals with patience rather than frustration, you discover that every challenge is an invitation to deepen your bond, to show leadership without force, to offer comfort without coddling, and to become the safe place your dog returns to when the world feels too overwhelming. In the end, the journey is not about fixing aggression. It is about understanding a small heart that simply wants to feel secure in your hands.